not something you could have seen coming, and yet something you planned for, you didn't know you were planning for.
That's right.
You'd planned for 15 or 20 years with your finances. You know, Matt, we just finished talking about having financial plans and having financial goals. And one of the questions I get, and I'm guessing you get it too, is what made you different? Why did you get started at such an early age? So I'll throw that at you. Why did you get started at such an early age? What do you attribute that to?
Well, for me, I didn't grow up with a lot. I grew up in a real lower middle class area and had parents got divorced, a single mom. And because of that, at least for me, I didn't want to go through that experience when I was older. And I didn't want my kids to go through it either. My dad did work very, very hard, but he was gone a ton. And I to the degree that I could, wanted to figure out, okay, how do I address this early on so I don't have this later? So at 22, I graduate from college and I start my tutoring company the week I graduate. Now, when I say company, I mean like a practice. All right. It was me. It was me. Now, technically it was a company, but it was just me. So, and I would go to people's houses. It was one-on-one in-home tutoring. So I'd go to, like a 5th, 6th, 7th grader's house and help that kid. And these were pretty well-heeled parents. So they were paying me like 75 or $100 an hour. And I was showing up a little button-up shirt. Sure. And I'd go and do my thing. Now, I always would hear things going on in the houses and kids would talk to me about their parents. And whenever I would meet a parent that I really liked and, kind of connected with, I'd chat with them and find out what they're doing. And most of the people that I really liked and kind of admired, I realized these people were predominantly in real estate. And so I'd start taking them out to lunch. Like, what is it? Like, help me understand just what, how, like, how does this work? And they appreciated that I was young and I was curious and I was hard charging. And what I realized always is, it's never a good time to buy. Never, right? It's like you can always come up with a reason why you can't do it.
There's always reasons to spend the money somewhere else.
That's right. And the number one thing they said is they're like, look, you're 22, you're 23. You have a great gift that you'll never have again, which is time. Yeah. They said, look, me at 50 or me at 60, I don't have that much time.
You can't replace it.
Right. One of my mentors at 60 is like, listen, I got 20, maybe 20 good years left. If I live into my mid 80s, I'll be really, really happy. But he's like, I can't start doing things that require a 20 or 30 year time horizon. Yeah. It's like you at 22, you got nothing but time. You got no money, but you got time. So I started getting after that, and people criticized me roundly. In my family, in my now wife's family, they were very critical of the idea that here's this 22 or 23-year-old, and he's working really hard to make money. He's really working hard on these investments. For some reason, they thought I should be paying less attention to careers and investing.
They wanted you out playing with them, or
they wanted me going on ski trips. They wanted me not working on Sundays or Saturdays because I was working 7 days a week.
Wait a minute, Matt. What about YOLO?
Oh my gosh.
So what about YOLO? What about I'm 22 and I'm never going to be 22 again?
I have never going to get something again. Listen to this. I have a relative who they were in school getting advanced degrees. One of them was working. One of them was going back to school to become a teacher. And the one that was working, they were borrowing money from family. They were borrowing money from the state, student loans, all these things, private school for this master's degree to be a teacher. And one of them goes off and goes heli-skiing. And he says, I'll never have this opportunity again. I'm like, you're 25.
Are you kidding?
And I knew this at 20. I was like, you're 25. If you never have this are you dying next year?
Yeah.
What do you mean? You're not even in your 30s.
You can go heli-skiing every year. And so yeah, I knew that would set you off on the YOLO. And so we've had similar earlier years.
Right.
And you hit on it really well. You don't have time later. You have time when you're young. So you're 42 now?
42 now, yeah.
I bet your 42-year-old self would love to go back and shake hands and say thank you to your 22-year-old self. And a lot of times we talk about that and say, what do you wish you would have done? And when I'm talking to younger people, I'm sure you talk to a lot of young people, talking about what are you going to do today that you'll congratulate yourself for 20 years from now? And in terms of setting yourself up and making the wise decisions back then and not buying into the YOLO mentality.
Yes. And if I may, not only would I shake my 22-year-old's hand, in all honesty here, I was crushing with my tutoring business through the 20s, through my 30s. I had a clothing brand with my tutoring. I was making hundreds of thousands of dollars as a solo practitioner. I had my own classroom, this whole thing. That all ended when COVID hit.
Yeah.
Not because I had made a mistake, not because I did anything wrong, but because with COVID came a lot of civil unrest and a lot of criticism towards any indication in the public education system that there was a disparity in scores between different ethnicities. So, for instance, I'm Mexican. So there were a lot of people saying, hey, Mexican Americans score lower than Caucasian Americans on the SAT, and therefore we shouldn't use that for admissions. So my entire basis for my company disappeared overnight because colleges stopped requiring the SAT. Now, that's not what I want people to focus on. What I want people to realize is at 39 with 3 children and a wife, the only thing I had ever done my entire adult life, which was SAT prep, was gone. And I was living in one of the most expensive areas of the country.
And the key, completely unforeseen.
Completely unforeseen.
Not something you did wrong, not something you could have seen coming, and yet something you planned for. You didn't know you were planning for.
That's right.
You'd planned for 15 or 20 years with your finances.
You hit the nail on the head. You cannot imagine the horror that I experienced realizing like, wait a minute, it's over? Like this is gone?
Yeah.
Like Yale University is no longer looking at Berkeley's Harvard? No one's looking at this? And no matter what, I hadn't done anything and it was over. But because of my 22, 23, 24-year-old self, those 3 mats, they actually saved my family.
Yeah.
Without them doing what they did, without them working 7 days a week, without them sacrificing, without them taking these leaps of faith, the 39-year-old Matt would have been destitute.
Yeah.
There's nothing that could have recovered me.
So the whole, what we're talking about here, having a financial plan and working it through, it's not just for today or tomorrow. It's for, like, you were planning trips, vacations, financial ability for your kids before you had your kids.
That's 100% correct. I was planning for flexibility for coaching Little League and being home for dinner when I was 36.
Yeah.
But I was planning these things when I was 23.
Exactly.
And the 23-year-old self made that possible for the 36-year-old self. Because too frequently, people, especially younger people that I even speak with, their time horizon is like 6 months. What can I do right now to either get dinner with
6
my kids
months.
right now and like maybe into, or yeah, like
2 weeks.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking of the most aggressive, audacious young people. But you're 100% right. There's no continuity between like, you realize you're still going to be alive in 10 years, hopefully, God willing. Yeah. And like, this does affect that meaningfully.
Let's make a plan here.
Right.
You know, we've been blessed. I went through, I got to coach my son's Little League teams. And so many parents had the same thought. They'd come up to me and say, we're so thankful you're doing this. We wish we had time. I said, well, I was putting my time in my late teens and early 20s, building things, building investments so that I do have time. You know, when my son was young and my daughter was young, I like to brag about my kids playing sports. They both black belts in Taekwondo. They've both been ranked in the top 10 in the world. That didn't happen overnight, but I was preparing for it before they were even born. And I got to travel with their teams to the tournaments. Didn't matter where the tournaments were, I was going. I had that leeway. And again, like you said, my 22-year-old self allowed that to happen. Now, I had kids later in life, so in my 40s, not only did I get to coach my son's Little League, but thankfully my son had the talent to play on a Division I baseball team. I was one of the only parents that got to travel wherever they played. They played all over the country. And yet I was able to go, not because of what I was doing right then. Actually, I had a couple of kind of tough years in business back, when my son was early in college, but I had built it 20 years before he was around. And so the financial plan and then working it, we've been blessed and able to do that. So when we have parents listening right now, hopefully we're talking to the parents, but we're also talking to the parents about their kids, and maybe even people that they're not parents yet, but they can make plans to prepare for when the kids come so that they can take time off. They can coach Little League. They can go to swim meets. They can go to soccer practices. All these things that it seems like all parents want to do, but when the time gets there, they're busy doing what? They haven't put their time in. They haven't put the investment in. They're busy working.
Right.
Just to pay for the cost of a family.
That's that old folk song, Cats in the Cradle, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole point. That by the time you have kids, you're so engaged in your career, you're so committed to your financial obligations that you just blow off your kids. And then of course your kids blow you off when you're the grandparent and they have kids.
We hear it all the time, and I'm sure you hear it as well, oh, I wish you don't understand. You don't have kids like I do. And I think, well, there aren't bad kids. There's just maybe problems that have developed that we haven't addressed because we weren't around, because we were working. But if we work on this from an early age, I was blessed to have a couple of financial mentors that gave me ideas back, when I was 12, 13 years old. I remember my dad asked me, I was buying my second house. I think I was 23. And he said, why would anybody need more than one house? And I said, because I'm going to have, and I explained the idea of an investment. My dad had never had that, coming from the Depression era in South Dakota, farmer. They had no idea why anybody would want two houses. So I had mentors that gave me a different mindset and different ideas than even my parents. My parents were phenomenal people, but they didn't give me that. And so one of the things we've talked about is being around a good group of people that are going to guide you in those directions. Or as you mentioned, Matt, being strong enough to, even if people are trying to guide you in a different way, saying, no, I know this is where I want to go.
That's actually a really astute point. The people that helped me get going in real estate, I actually leaned on them when I went through this. And one of my old mentors, this guy Mark, who used to be the president of the Berkeley Property Association, he sat me down once, and I think I was again like 23, 24.
Yeah.
He said, "Look, Matt, the only people that are going to understand what you're doing are people in real estate.
Yeah.
The only people that likely aren't going to criticize you are people in real estate. And you will realize by the end of your 20s that the people you hang out with most are likely in real estate because they're the only ones going through what you're going through."
Sorry, I had to start. I don't mean to interrupt.
No.
Sounds like we're trying to sell a real estate investment
No,
program.
and again, but the point is,
we're not, by the way.
No, and it was funny to me because Mark had lived this life. The other people I knew had lived this life, and then the people that were criticizing me, and family or friends or whatever, they were outside of this. And he said, it doesn't matter. In 10 years, maybe even less, they're going to say how smart you were. They're not going to say it now, but just wait. Yeah. That's all you have to do. He said, just hang on and you'll get there.
They're going to wonder how you got there.
Right.
And the key is, we keep saying it, it's time.
Right.
And one thing that hasn't come up in this conversation, we haven't said anything about it being quick.
No. Oh my God, no.
We haven't said anything about it being easy.
Yep.
Okay. And I think you mentioned, before we turned the mics on, was about building wealth, and especially generational wealth, and doing the right thing typically does take time. But it takes time, and then it saves you time later in your life.
Right.
Okay. And that's what we talk about when we're raising kids. We have time to go do things. We have time to spend with the kids rather than grinding it out at the office.
Right.
And that can't be overlooked. Just how valuable putting the time in early and the investment and buying things that matter versus what are typically 20, 25-year-olds, what are they buying?
I don't know, bikes, motorcycles, fancy cars, convertibles, whatever it might be.
Yeah. or the YOLOs, the heli skiing, the different, oh, I've got to go to the concert the concert happens to be in Dallas. Let's jump on an airplane. So all these things that seem so important at that particular time, and realize if we put forth some discipline and some work, again, it's not going to be quick. It's not going to be easy. It's probably not even going to be the most, if you will, the most popular.
It's not glamorous.
No,
it's not glamorous.
It's not that, that social media, microwave, quick, all that stuff. It's not something you don't see people getting on social media going, I just bought a great investment, at 22 years old. Now, if they're trying to sell you real estate,
yeah, right.
Something.
Yeah, their program, their real estate system.
Yeah, my system will make you rich, fast, easy, quick.
Right.
Those are words that don't come out of my mouth, because we've got to realize going in, a life worth living and building a legacy life takes time. Building legacy investments, building legacy kids takes time and effort. But what we're talking about here, I appreciate your input, Matt, is just think about if you go back and shake the hand of the 20-year-old you and say, thank you for doing this. Now, how many of us really want to go back and meet that person and say, I wish you'd done this and this and this, or thank you for doing this and this and this.
Right.
And I think that's really, whether it's adults listening that are going to work with their kids or come to one of our gatherings and sit and talk about it, don't leave the kids at home. Bring the kids along, because that's what we want to get started. If we're talking about generations and we're talking about legacies, we have to have the kids come along with us.
Right.
So I appreciate your input.
Appreciate you too, Zane.